Marcus Wellington adjusts his $50,000 Patek Philippe watch for the third time in 2 minutes, staring through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office. 47 floors below, New York City pulses with life he's forgotten how to feel. His phone buzzes, another billion-dollar deal closing, but his eyes remain fixed on something else entirely. Across the street, through another building's windows, he watches a father teaching his son to ride a bicycle. The boy falls, laughs, gets up, falls again. The father's patience seems infinite. Marcus's chest tightens with a pain he hasn't allowed himself to feel in 8 years. If you've ever wondered whether success can make you lose everything that actually matters, stay with me. Because what happens next will change how you see everything. And make sure to subscribe. This story will stay with you long after it ends. Marcus Wellington built his empire on precision. Every meeting calculated to the minute. Every decision measured in profit margins. Every relationship evaluated for its return on investment. At 52, he owned 17 companies across 4 continents, employed over 10,000 people, and hadn't hugged his son in 3 years. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built this fortune to give his family everything, yet somehow gave them nothing that mattered. His phone rings, interrupting the memory that threatens to surface. Wellington here. His voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed instantly. Mr. Wellington, Zara from Sunrise Care Center is calling. It's about Jamie. The name hits him like ice water. Jamie, his son, his disabled son, who he sees exactly twice a month for 45 minutes each visit. Sundays at 2 p.m., scheduled between his golf game and conference calls with Tokyo. What's wrong? Marcus's grip tightens on the phone, his billion-dollar composure cracking just slightly. Nothing's wrong, sir. Actually, something wonderful has happened. Jamie has been selected to lead our annual dance performance next month. We wanted to invite you personally. I'm sorry, Zara, but I'll have to decline. I'm in the middle of acquiring a tech company in Silicon Valley, and Mr. Wellington. Zara's voice is gentle but firm. When's the last time you actually watched your son do something he loves? The question hangs in the air like an accusation. Marcus stares at his reflection in the window. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, empty eyes. When was the last time? He can recall Jamie's diagnosis 8 years ago with perfect clarity. Cerebral palsy, the doctor said, affecting his mobility and speech. He remembers the medical bills, the best specialist money could buy, the finest care facility in Manhattan. But watching Jamie do something he loves? The memory feels like trying to grasp smoke. I'll think about it. Marcus lies smoothly and ends a call. But he can't stop thinking about it. During his merger meeting with Deutsche Bank, he finds himself wondering what kind of dance Jamie could possibly lead. During his dinner with senators and tech moguls, he imagines his son's smile, the real one, not the polite, distant one from their scheduled visits. That night, alone in his marble and gold mansion that feels more like a museum than a home, Marcus does something he hasn't done in years. He pulls out his laptop and searches for videos of children with cerebral palsy dancing. What he finds breaks something inside him that's been carefully sealed for 8 years. There's a boy about Jamie's age, moving with determined grace despite his body's limitations. His movements aren't perfect by conventional standards, but they're beautiful in a way that transcends technique. The boy's face radiates pure joy, and his father stands in the audience, tears streaming down his face, clapping like his son just won an Olympic gold medal. That father looks the way Marcus used to look at Jamie, before the diagnosis, before the guilt, before he decided that providing financial security was the only way he knew how to love a child he couldn't fix. The next morning, Marcus calls his assistant. Cancel my meetings for Friday. Sir, the Samsung executives are flying in from Seoul specifically. Cancel them. But sir, this deal represents. Elizabeth, I said cancel them. His voice carries a weight she's never heard before. I'm going to see my son dance. The drive to Sunrise Care Center feels longer than any international flight Marcus has taken. His Bentley purrs through Manhattan traffic, while his heart hammers against his ribs. He hasn't been to the center outside of his scheduled visits in over 2 years. The building looks smaller than he remembers, more humble than the gleaming towers he's accustomed to navigating. Zara meets him at the entrance. She's younger than he expected, maybe 30, with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so glad you came." "I'm not sure why I'm here," Marcus admits, a rare moment of vulnerability slipping through his armor. "Because deep down, you know your son needs his father to see him. Not the successful businessman, not the provider, his father." They walk through hallways lined with children's artwork. Marcus notices a drawing labeled "My Hero" in crayon. It shows a stick figure man in a wheelchair with a huge smile. The artist's name in the corner makes Marcus's steps falter. Jamie Wellington, age 14. His son drew himself as his own hero. The realization hits Marcus like a physical blow. While he's been drowning in guilt over what Jamie can't do, his son has been celebrating what he can do. While Marcus has been avoiding him out of shame and helplessness, Jamie has been learning to be his own champion. "He's in the practice room," Zara says gently, pushing open a door. Marcus steps inside and stops breathing. There's Jamie, his beautiful 14-year-old son, in his wheelchair at the center of a group of 8 other children. Some are in wheelchairs, others use walkers. One moves with the jerky determination of someone whose body doesn't always obey his mind. But they're all moving together, and Jamie, his Jamie, is leading them. His son's voice, usually soft and careful, fills the room with confidence. "Remember, Emma, it's not about moving the same way everyone else does. It's about moving the way that feels right for you. Show me your version of reaching for the stars." Emma, a girl who can't be more than 10, raises her arms with enormous effort. They shake, they don't go straight up, but when she smiles, she's radiant. Jamie mirrors her movement perfectly, making her version the right version. "Beautiful." Jamie calls out, "Now, Michael, show us your spin." Michael's spin is more of a careful turn in his wheelchair, but Jamie watches him like he's watching Baryshnikov. Then Jamie does his own version, a complex movement where he uses his upper body strength to create a twisting motion that's genuinely graceful. Marcus realizes he's watching a masterclass in leadership, in acceptance, in finding beauty where others see limitation. His son isn't just dancing. He's teaching every child in that room that their way of moving is perfect, that their bodies are instruments of joy rather than sources of shame. A memory floods back with startling clarity. Jamie at 6 years old, before the diagnosis, spinning in the backyard with his arms spread wide, laughing as he got dizzy and fell into the grass. "Daddy, watch me dance," he called out. And Marcus had watched, had laughed, had picked him up and spun him again. When had he stopped watching? When had he decided that Jamie's joy wasn't worth celebrating? The practice session ends and the children begin to leave. Jamie turns his wheelchair toward the door and freezes when he sees Marcus standing there. "Dad." The word comes out uncertain, as if Jamie isn't sure he's really seeing his father outside of their scheduled time. Marcus takes a step forward, then another. Up close, he can see that Jamie has grown. His shoulders are broader, his face more mature. How much of his son's growing up has he missed while building an empire Jamie never asked for? "You're incredible," Marcus says, his voice rough with emotion he's kept buried for years. "I watched you with those children, and you're a leader, a real leader." Jamie's eyes widen. In their scheduled visits, they talk about school, about Jamie's health, about surface things. Marcus has never talked about who Jamie is becoming as a person. "I love dancing," Jamie says simply. "It makes me feel free. Like my wheelchair isn't something that holds me back. It's just part of how I move through the world." "When did you become so wise?" Marcus asks, and he means it. His son possesses a wisdom about acceptance and joy that Marcus, for all his success, has never achieved. I think when I realized you weren't coming back." The words hit Marcus like a sledgehammer. "What do you mean?" Jamie looks down at his hands. "After I got sick, you changed. You started looking at me like I was broken, like you were sad every time you saw me. So I figured out how to be happy without you. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to." Marcus feels his world tilt. All these years, he thought he was protecting Jamie from his own pain. his own sense of failure as a father who couldn't make his child's life perfect. Instead, he'd abandoned his son to figure out how to build his own happiness from scratch. Jamie, Marcus starts, then stops. How do you apologize for 8 years of absence? How do you explain that your love was so big it scared you into running away? I was afraid, Marcus admits. When the doctors told us about your cerebral palsy, I felt like I'd failed you. Like I was supposed to be able to fix everything, and I couldn't fix this. So I just provided for you instead. Money, the best care, the best everything. But I never stopped to ask what you actually needed from me. Jamie is quiet for a long moment. Then, I needed my dad to think I was enough. Just the way I am. The simplicity of it breaks Marcus completely. He drops to his knees beside Jamie's wheelchair, tears he's held back for 8 years finally falling. You are enough, he whispers. You're more than enough. You're extraordinary, and I've been too scared and too proud to see it. I'm so sorry, Jamie. I'm so sorry I made you feel like you had to be happy without me. Jamie reaches out and touches his father's face, wiping away a tear with surprising gentleness. Dad, I forgive you. But I need you to forgive yourself too. Because I want my father back. Not just for 45 minutes twice a month. I want the dad who used to dance with me in the backyard. Marcus looks up at his son, really looks at him, and sees not a child to be pitted or fixed, but a young man who has turned his challenges into strength, his limitations into a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. Will you teach me? Marcus asks. Will you teach me how to dance the way you dance? Jamie's smile is like sunrise. Are you sure? I don't move like other people. That's exactly why I want to learn from you. What happens next changes everything Marcus thought he knew about strength, about success, about what it means to be a father. Jamie positions his wheelchair, then looks at his father expectantly. First, you have to understand that dancing isn't about perfect movements. It's about expressing what's inside you. What do you feel right now, Dad? Marcus considers the question. What does he feel? Regret for lost years, yes. But also something else, something he hasn't felt in so long he'd almost forgotten its name. Hope. I feel like I want to start over, Marcus says. Like I want to be the father you deserved all along. Then show me that, Jamie says. Move like someone who's ready to start over. Marcus feels ridiculous at first. He's a man accustomed to boardrooms and billion-dollar negotiations, not to expressing his emotions through movement. But as he watches Jamie demonstrate, the way his son uses his arms to create flowing motions, the way he turns limitations into unique beauty, Marcus begins to understand. He starts with simple movements, reaching upward like he's grasping for a second chance. His movements are awkward, uncertain, but Jamie nods encouragingly. Good, Dad. Now, show me what it looks like to let go of guilt. Marcus pauses. How do you dance letting go of guilt? He thinks about the weight he's carried, the shame that made him pull away from the son who needed him most. Slowly, he opens his arms wide, then lets them fall to his sides, releasing invisible burdens. Beautiful, Jamie says, and Marcus realizes his son has tears in his eyes too. Now we dance together. What follows is clumsy and imperfect and absolutely magical. Marcus, standing beside Jamie's wheelchair, learns to move in harmony with his son's rhythm rather than imposing his own. They create something that's not quite conventional dance, but is purely there's a conversation in movement, a father and son finding their way back to each other. This is what we'll do for the performance, Jamie says when they finally stop, both breathing hard and laughing. You and me together. Together, Marcus repeats, and the word tastes like redemption. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus does something unprecedented in his business career. He delegates. He empowers his vice presidents to handle the daily operations, while he spends every afternoon at Sunrise Care Center, learning not just to dance with Jamie, but to see the world through his son's eyes. He meets the other children Jamie works with, learns their names, their stories, their dreams. He discovers that Emma wants to be a teacher, that Michael writes poetry, that Sarah, who communicates primarily through facial expressions, has a wicked sense of humor. These children, whom the world might label as disabled, are some of the most alive people Marcus has ever encountered. He also learns that Jamie has been using his trust fund, money Marcus has been depositing monthly for years, to fund additional arts programs at the center. His son has been quietly giving away a fortune to make other children's lives brighter, never mentioning it during their stilted visits. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus asks one afternoon as they practice their routine. "Would you have approved?" Jamie asks with a slight smile. Marcus considers this. The old Marcus, obsessed with growing wealth and maintaining control, probably would have disapproved. The father he's becoming realizes his son has been putting their money to better use than most of his own investments. "I'm proud of you," Marcus says. "I should have been saying that for years." The night before the performance, Marcus lies awake in his empty mansion, thinking about everything that's changed. His stocks portfolio has dropped slightly due to his reduced attention to business. He's missed 3 major acquisition opportunities. By his old metrics, the last month has been a professional disaster. By every metric that actually matters, it's been the most successful month of his life. His phone buzzes with a text from Jamie. "Dad, thank you for coming back to me. Tomorrow is going to be amazing." Marcus stares at the message until his vision blurs. When did his son become the one offering comfort, offering assurance? When did this child Marcus thought needed saving become the one doing the saving? The morning of the performance, Marcus wakes up more nervous than he's ever been before any business presentation. He chooses his outfit carefully, not his usual armor of expensive suits, but simple dark pants and a blue shirt that Jamie once said makes his eyes look kind. The auditorium at Sunrise Care Center is small, holding maybe 50 people. Marcus has spoken to audiences of thousands, has addressed the World Economic Forum and the UN General Assembly. But as he stands backstage with Jamie, his hands are shaking. "Dad, look at me," Jamie says gently. Marcus meets his son's eyes. "Remember what we talked about. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about showing everyone what love looks like when it moves." The curtain rises, and Marcus sees the audience, other parents, staff members, some of the children's siblings. In the third row, he spots a familiar face, Elizabeth, his assistant, who has somehow found out about today and come to watch. Her presence touches him more than he expected. The music begins, not the classical piece Marcus assumed it would be, but something contemporary and hopeful. Jamie moves into the center of the stage, and Marcus follows, just as they've practiced. But something magical happens that they haven't practiced. As they begin to dance, as Marcus moves in harmony with his son's rhythm, the artificial boundaries between ability and disability dissolve completely. The audience doesn't see a successful businessman awkwardly trying to dance with his disabled son. They see a father and son who have found their way back to each other, whose love has learned to move in perfect synchronization. Marcus realizes that everything he's ever achieved in business pales in comparison to this moment. All his wealth, all his power, all his influence, none of it means anything compared to the simple act of dancing with his son, of being present for Jamie's joy. The song builds to its crescendo, and Jamie signals for their final movement, the one they've practiced most. Marcus kneels beside Jamie's wheelchair, and they reach upward together, their arms creating parallel lines toward the sky. It's a movement that speaks of aspiration, of reaching for something higher than themselves. But as Marcus looks at his son in this moment, he realizes they're not reaching for something distant. They've already found what they were searching for. They've found each other. The applause is thunderous for such a small audience. Marcus looks out and sees that many people are crying, including Elizabeth, including Zara, including parents he's never met who seem to understand something profound has just happened. But the person whose reaction matters most is Jamie. His son is glowing with a happiness so pure it's almost painful to witness. Not because he's performed well, but because his father has finally shown up, not just physically, but emotionally, completely. "We did it, Dad," Jamie says as they take their bow. "We did," Marcus agrees. But he knows Jamie means something deeper than completing a dance routine. They found their way back to being father and son. As they leave the stage, Marcus is approached by other parents, other children, staff members who want to share their own stories. He listens, really listens, for the first time in years. A mother tells him about her daughter's struggle with autism and her recent breakthrough in painting. A father shares how his son with Down syndrome just got his first job. These parents have learned what Marcus is just discovering, that loving a child with disabilities isn't about overcoming the disability. It's about celebrating the child. Later, as Marcus and Jamie sit together in the center's garden, watching the sun set over Manhattan, Jamie asks a question that stops Marcus's heart. "Dad, are you going to disappear again when this is over?" The question reveals Jamie's deepest fear, that this reconnection is temporary, that Marcus will return to his old patterns once the performance high fades. Marcus takes his son's hand. "Jamie, I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. I spent 8 years thinking that being a good father meant providing for your future. I built companies and made money and convinced myself that financial security was love. But I was wrong. Love isn't what you build for someone. Love is what you build with someone." He pauses, looking directly into Jamie's eyes. "I want to build a life with you. Not the life I think you should have, but the life you actually want. I want to know your dreams, your fears, your friends, your favorite foods. I want to argue with you about homework and embarrass you by dancing badly at school events. I want to be your father, not your financial advisor." Jamie is quiet for a long moment. Then, "What about your companies? Your deals? All that stuff you said was so important." Marcus smiles. "You know what I've learned in the last month? I'm actually a better businessman when I remember what I'm working for. When I remember that success isn't about having the most money. It's about having the most reasons to be grateful." "So you're not going to retire and become a full-time dance dad?" Jamie asks with a grin. "Not quite," Marcus laughs. "But I'm going to restructure everything. I'm going to step back from day-to-day operations and focus on the bigger picture. And the biggest picture in my life is you." As if to seal this promise, Marcus pulls out his phone and does something that would have been unthinkable a month ago. He calls Elizabeth. "Elizabeth, I need you to schedule something for me. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day Saturdays. Permanently. Non-negotiable. What should I put on your calendar, sir?" Marcus looks at Jamie, who is watching this conversation with growing amazement. Put down time with Jamie. And Elizabeth? If anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to schedule over that time, tell them they'll have to wait. My son is my priority now. Jamie's smile could power the city. 6 months later, Marcus Wellington is still one of the richest men in America. But he's also become something much rarer. A rich man who understands what wealth actually means. He's at another dance performance, but this time it's at Jamie's school. His son has started a program that brings together students with and without disabilities, teaching everyone that difference isn't deficiency, it's diversity. Marcus watches from the audience as Jamie leads a group of 20 kids through a routine they've created together. Some are in wheelchairs, some use walkers, some move with perfect conventional grace. But they all move with joy and under Jamie's guidance. They've learned to create beauty together rather than in spite of their differences. In the audience, Marcus sits next to other parents who have become genuine friends over the past months. He's learned their names, their stories, their struggles and triumphs. He's become part of a community he never knew existed. Parents who measure success not in stock prices, but in their children's smiles. After the performance, as families gather for refreshments, Marcus overhears a conversation that stops him cold. A new father, whose daughter was recently diagnosed with spina bifida, is talking to another parent. "I just don't know how to handle this. I feel like I've failed her somehow." Marcus recognizes the pain in the man's voice because he once felt exactly the same way. Without thinking, he approaches. "Excuse me," Marcus says gently. "I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Marcus Wellington, Jamie's father." He gestures toward Jamie, who is surrounded by admiring kids and parents. "I want to tell you something that someone should have told me 8 years ago. You haven't failed your daughter. But if you disappear from her life because you think she's broken, you will fail her. Because she's not broken. None of these kids are broken. They're just different kinds of perfect. The father looks at Marcus with desperate hope. How do you know? Because I almost lost the most important thing in my life trying to fix something that was never broken to begin with. Over the following hour, Marcus finds himself sharing his story with this stranger, offering the guidance he wishes he'd received, the perspective he had to learn the hard way. By the end of their conversation, the father is in tears, but they're tears of relief, not despair. "Thank you," the man says. "I needed to hear that." As Marcus drives home with Jamie that night, his son is unusually quiet. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asks. "I was thinking about what you told that dad tonight, about how we're different kinds of perfect. Do you agree with that?" Jamie considers this carefully. I think I used to wish I could be regular perfect. You know, like the kids who can run and jump and don't need wheelchairs. But now I think regular perfect might be kind of boring." Marcus glances at his son in the rearview mirror. "How so?" "Well, if I was regular perfect, I probably wouldn't have learned how to find joy in small things. I wouldn't have learned how to help other kids feel good about themselves. I wouldn't have learned how strong I really am. And," Jamie pauses, then grins, "I wouldn't have been able to teach my billionaire dad how to dance." Marcus laughs, but his eyes are damp. "You know what? I think you're absolutely right. Regular perfect is overrated." "Besides," Jamie adds with a wisdom that constantly amazes Marcus, "if I was different, you might not have learned what really matters. Maybe this was always supposed to happen this way." That night, as Marcus sits in his home office, the same office where this story began, he looks out the same floor-to-ceiling windows at the same city below. But everything has changed. Where he once saw targets for acquisition and expansion, he now sees communities full of families like his own, people finding their own versions of perfect, parents learning to love children who don't fit conventional molds. His phone buzzes with a text from Jamie. "Dad, I love you. Thank you for learning how to see me." Marcus stares at the message, remembering the father he used to be, successful but empty, wealthy but poor in every way that mattered. That man would have scheduled a response to this text, would have treated even love like a business transaction. Instead, Marcus gets up from his desk, walks to Jamie's room, and knocks softly on the door. "Come in," Jamie calls. Marcus finds his son reading in bed, surrounded by books about dance, about leadership, about making the world more inclusive. "I got your text," Marcus says, sitting on the edge of Jamie's bed. And I wanted to tell you in person, I love you too. Not the version of you I thought I wanted you to be, but exactly who you are. You've taught me that the best leaders aren't the ones who make others follow them. They're the ones who help others find their own way to fly." Jamie closes his book and really looks at his father. "You know what's funny? I used to think you were disappointed in me because I couldn't be the son you wanted. But I think maybe you were disappointed in yourself because you thought you couldn't be the father I needed." The observation is so perceptive, so accurate, that Marcus can only nod. "But Dad, you were always the father I needed. I was just waiting for you to figure that out." Marcus reaches over and hugs his son, really hugs him, not the careful, brief embraces of their scheduled visits, but the kind of hug that says everything that words can't express. As he holds Jamie, Marcus realizes that this moment, this simple act of connection, is worth more than every deal he's ever closed, every company he's ever built, every dollar he's ever earned. Because success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about who you become in the process of living. And Marcus Wellington, who spent decades building an empire, has finally learned that the greatest construction project of his life was always meant to be building a relationship with his son. As he leaves Jamie's room and returns to his office, Marcus makes one final decision. He opens his laptop and begins typing an email to his board of directors, announcing his transition from CEO to Chairman Emeritus. He's not retiring. He's restructuring his life around what actually matters. His last act as CEO will be to establish the Jamie Wellington Foundation, dedicated to providing arts programs for children with disabilities and supporting families who are learning, as he did. That different doesn't mean less than. The Foundation's mission statement, which Marcus writes himself that night, reads, "Every child is born perfect in their own way. Our job as adults is not to fix them, but to learn from them. Our children don't need us to make them whole. They need us to recognize that they already are." At the bottom, he adds a personal note, dedicated to my son Jamie, who taught his father that the greatest disability is an inability to see someone else's unique perfection. The next morning, Marcus wakes up for the first time in years without checking the Asian markets or reading overnight reports. Instead, he makes breakfast and waits for Jamie to wake up, planning to start their Saturday the way they should have been starting Saturdays all along, together, with nowhere more important to be than exactly where they are. When Jamie wheels into the kitchen, sleep-tousled and smiling, he finds his father at the stove, making pancakes shaped like hearts. "What's the occasion?" Jamie asks. Marcus turns from the stove, spatula in hand, grinning like the father he used to be and is becoming again. "No occasion. Just felt like making my son breakfast. Just because I love you. Just because you're my son. Just because this is what fathers do when they finally remember how to be present." Jamie's smile is radiant. "I like this version of you, Dad." "Me too," Marcus says, and he means it with every fiber of his being. "Me too." As they eat breakfast together, planning their day, which includes Jamie's weekend dance class, a visit to the botanical gardens, and an afternoon of Marcus learning to play Jamie's favorite video game, Marcus reflects on the journey that brought them here. He lost 8 years to fear, to misguided priorities, to the belief that providing was more important than presence. But maybe, Marcus thinks, as he watches Jamie laugh at his own joke about pancake shapes, maybe those lost years weren't truly lost. Maybe they were the price he had to pay to learn what priceless actually means. Because sitting here in his kitchen, eating heart-shaped pancakes, with his son, who sees the world more clearly than most adults ever will, Marcus Wellington finally understands the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich is having money. Wealthy is having something worth more than money. And Marcus Wellington, for the first time in his life, is truly wealthy. This story shows us that sometimes we have to lose our way completely to find what was always meant to matter most. If this touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to remember that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what it really means to be human. And remember, the most successful people aren't the ones who accumulate the most, but the ones who love the most deeply.